Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. The regular meeting of the Council of Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin for Tuesday, April the 11th. Welcome to those who are in the chamber and those who are joining us online. If I could ask for us to stand for the national anthem, please. Thank you. The Municipality of Central Elgin acknowledges that it is located on the land of the McKee Treaty that was signed by the Wyandot and by Anishinaabe nations, including ancestors of Chippewas of the Thames First Nation. It is also the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Attawandarak, and Mississauga Nation. These First Nations continue to provide ongoing stewardship of the land and waters of the Municipality of Central Elgin. I ask Council for a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, please. Seeing none. Adoption of the minutes. Was there anyone have any discussion on the last minutes? If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Watson.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated March 27th, 2023 be adopted.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have two delegations with us this evening. I apologize in advance if there are any technical issues with respect to the microphones. I'm finding that being a little bit further back might help a little bit. That said, I don't know if everyone can hear me, but I'll continue to speak mildly as possible and hoping that it's not much feedback if going forward. First of all, our first delegation is the Elgin County Warden at Ketchabaw, the CAO, Julie Gonyou. I also see our friend Carolyn is here this evening. Update on the work from County of Elgin. Welcome, folks.
Good evening, Mayor Sloan and Council, and I'm going to stand back from the microphone as well. And hopefully we don't get too much feedback. Thank you very much for taking and making the time on your agenda for this presentation. This evening, Julie and I, on behalf of County Council and Administration, are going to bring you a brief update on county initiatives. It is our plan over the next couple of weeks to visit all 7 local municipal councils with a similar presentation. Can we have a change in the slide, please? Next slide. As part of today's or this evening's presentation, Julie and I will provide you with an update on or an overview on Elgin County's strategic plan and an update on current initiatives, some that are well underway and others that are nearing completion. It is a good opportunity this evening for you to understand and see what is going on at Elgin County, for you to ask questions about our services, and for you to tell us what's important and then for Central Elgin priorities. Next slide. As you know, the demanding arena of municipal politics requires that we be up to date on current issues and have insight to manage resident and stakeholder expectations while delivering on strategies and commitments in a relatively short order. This is a tall order, and we're all in it together. 2023 has been a busy year thus far, and I'm sure it has been very busy for your council as well. We've seen changes on local councils. We've navigated through orientation, and we have struck out or engaged other initiatives such as local budgets and legislative changes. For me, this is especially busy, serving both as mayor of the municipality of Bayham and warden of the county. Even though it is still relatively early in the year, County Council has made a number of critical decisions, from supporting service efficiencies to enhancing in some areas and setting the 2023 budget. It's my hope that you will see through today's presentation that we're on track to have a great year. Next slide. Elgin's County Strategic Plan has served as a roadmap for service and expenditures since 2020. Our current strategic plan was due to end at the end of 2022. However, Council has determined that the current plan is still relevant, and we continue to use that to guide our work until Council decides and does revise its plan later this fall. Our work thus far in 2022 has been guided by 3 pillars, seem to be advancing. Go the other way. There you are, the strategic plan. The first is to design or redesign how we respond to community needs in a creative and sustainable way. The second, to be the place where people want to live, work, and play. And the third is to make responsible financial decisions. Now we'll move on. So what's new and exciting? Well, I can tell you that it's been quite difficult to pare this presentation down and to make it as brief as possible. There's a lot of activity going on at Elgin County, and Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor, I know that you are aware of that, but we will try to capture the highlights. Next slide. As warden, I have the privilege of representing Elgin County at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. The Western Ontario Wardens is comprised of 15 upper and single tier municipalities across southwestern Ontario, and it represents a residence base of roughly 3 million people. The goal of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus is to enhance the prosperity of and the overall well-being of rural and small urban communities across the region. The Western Ontario Wardens Caucus achieves this through advocacy, and the issues that they tend to focus most prevalently on is on infrastructure, transportation, long-term care, broadband, and economic development. The Western Ontario Wardens CAOs group meets every month, and the wardens meet every 6 weeks. Next slide. Elgin County is also a member of SCORE. That's the South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation. SCORE is a collaboration of the 5 former tobacco growing regions, namely Middlesex, Oxford, Brant, Norfolk, and Elgin County. And it represents a population base of just a little over 600,000 people. SCORE's mission is seen as complementary to the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and it focuses on 3 main pillars, such as infrastructure supporting economic development, human capital, such as workforce development, and sector development, primarily in the agriculture sector. Next slide. The Elgin St. Thomas Health Recruitment Partnership is another initiative that County Council supports in recognition of the demand for local physicians that obviously we're missing. If you look at the slide, and it's a little sobering to read into it, but at least 1 million Ontario residents lack a primary care physician. And in this community alone, is estimated upwards of 10,000. So this initiative involves an investment of roughly $71,790, which supports an incentive program, scholarships, and a physician recruiter who supports new physicians who join our community. Since it was established in 2008 between the county and the city, an investment of $1,123,280 has been made to support 36 physicians and 1 nurse practitioner. Next slide, please. County Council is pleased to offer eligible non-profit community group supplementary funds to strengthen the responsiveness, effectiveness, and resilience of service agencies, festivals, and events in Elgin County. In 2023, Elgin County will invest $72,900 in both established and emerging community programs and events that meet identified community need, build capacity, and support the county strategic plan. The program is administered by the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee. And over the past several years, it has been well subscribed to, in fact, oversubscribed to, which is a good indication that the events and groups out there are well aware of this funding. So if you know of any groups that might be able to participate in this funding, then I encourage you to ask them or have them contact county staff, or at least engage our website for more information. The next slide. And of course, since you've already taken up, you are a resident of the building here, you know that construction to improve accessibility at the county building is well underway. This $2.9 million investment includes new elevators and washrooms and improvements to lighting. Our current elevators were among the first 100 elevators inspected by TSSA in the 1930s, and we're very much looking forward to project completion in 2024. Next slide. A top priority for county councils to engage our community, and we're trying a variety of different ways to connect with our residents. We're trying to attend more events, host more public information sessions, issue surveys, and leverage social media to engage our community. We also have a dedicated landing page on our website called Engage Elgin, where counselors, staff, residents, community partners, and businesses can share ideas that will make Elgin County a better place to live, work, and play. We use our Engage Elgin site to share updates about new services and projects and collect community feedback to inform projects, policies, and initiatives. At this point, I will invite Julie to carry on with the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, your worship, to members of council. In terms of what's new and exciting, we have a lot on the go, including, for the first time ever, a transportation master plan. So this master plan covers the entire county and includes multimodal transportation. It also will include recommendations with respect to public transit opportunities. This plan will take us out 30 years into the future and look at our entire transportation network. So for more information, we have included links that will be helpful for anyone who's viewing online or members of council, which will take you directly to our Engage Elgin site for more project updates. We also have a very big project underway at Terrace Lodge. Terrace Lodge is our long-term care home with 100 beds in Malahide Township. This is a $36 million project, part of which around $17 million is funded by the Ministry of Long-Term Care. We are almost done phase 1 of a 3-phase project and should be moving residents over in the next month or so. So very much looking forward to having improved infection prevention and control, dedicated washrooms, which we didn't have before. Often we had 4 residents sharing 1 washroom, which didn't help in the event of an outbreak. So lots on the go with respect to this very big ticket item, so to speak, for Elgin County. In keeping with the Terrace Lodge redevelopment is a council committee that was established to support some value-added components of a project of this magnitude, and this is the Terrace Lodge Fundraising Committee. They have launched a fundraising campaign called The Comforts of Home, and they're endeavoring to raise $675,000 to support some enhancements for our residents and their families to bring comforts of home into our long-term care home. So thrilled with the progress that this committee, this dedicated committee is making, and they're almost halfway to their goal. And after some delays and extensive research and community consultation, we are almost to the end of our official plan review process. So this started as a 5-year review and has become more of a comprehensive overhaul of our official plan that has resulted in 10 strategic directions that will guide decision-making on important matters, including agriculture, housing, economic development, and natural resource management. So again, that link at the bottom will take you to those 10 strategic directions, and I encourage you to have a look. I should also mention that the first draft is available for public review. One of the background documents that we engaged Hempson Group to complete was a population, housing, and employment forecast and associated land needs analysis. And this is an incredibly helpful document that I wanted to bring to your attention. It's listed as discussion paper 3 on our Engage Elgin site. And it talks about recommendations for managing growth over the next 30 years. So it takes us well into the future. Our libraries are not only surviving post-COVID, but they're thriving. And one key initiative that we've undertaken that I think is worth mentioning to your council is that we have eliminated fines for children's materials. And that happened as a pilot. We've since moved forward with more collections and are hoping that this initiative will actually reduce barriers to use of our public libraries. So if we jump to the next slide, you'll see an infographic that really highlights some of the great work that our library team has been doing, including last year, they engaged over 1,800 new users to be members of our Elgin County Library system. And so in total, we have over 11,000 active library users, which is incredible for a population of our size. And total circulations for 2022 was over 270,000. So a lot to be proud of in this shared initiative. Of course, Central Elgin provides the facilities and Elgin County provides the service. So we couldn't do it without you. At the end of March, we reached a milestone, an important milestone, which was wherein council approved its 2023 operating and capital budgets with an increase of 3.76% to the county's portion of the municipal property taxes. So this, of course, covers services, including bridge maintenance and our county road infrastructure, paramedic services, community planning, long-term care homes, libraries, and more. So some budget highlights. This is predominantly a maintenance budget, which includes continuing with our existing services and operations and includes a non-salary union increase or a non-union salary increase of 2.5%. We have enhanced land ambulance services for the municipality of Bayham, where they had an emergency response unit, which meant that anyone who called 911 and needed to be transported to the hospital within that municipality, they had to call in a backup ambulance, which could actually transport someone to the hospital. So now we have a full service, we will have a full service ambulance in Bayham to even out the service across the community starting in the summer. We recognize the impact of inflation and the impact it has on our residents, on the cost of delivering services. And as a result, we have endeavored to find some ways to cut costs across the corporation, modernize services, leverage technology, and our budget also reflects an ongoing investment in transportation and our road network, including critical infrastructure. But we did have to even out our 10-year plan for asset management as a result of inflation. Community paramedicine is a program that we have long wished for. And this is something that we've applied for every year I've been here, which is coming up on 6 years now. So thrilled that the ministry, who will be 100% funding this program going forward for the next few years, we were able to launch this on March 1st. And so Elgin County and City of St. Thomas residents will have access to this program. It will be delivered by Medavie EMS, and it's a referral-based program, and it's put in place to support individuals who are living in their own homes, who are on wait lists for long-term care, who require additional in-home medical care. And this program will help avoid unnecessary transfers to hospitals, which often degrades individuals' health if they're back and forth to the hospital too often. So more to come on this program. We did just launch it, but look forward to providing your council with an update as soon as one is available. We haven't lost sight of the need to enhance broadband and internet connection for our community. We recognize that this was an ongoing struggle for many residents in Elgin County during the pandemic. And as a result, we engaged IBI Group last year to complete a study on internet availability, provider availability, and provide us with some recommendations for future state. We did develop an advocacy plan, which was supported by County Council, and work is ongoing to implement this plan. We've also been working with Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, which we refer to as SWIFT. And this is a program that originated or came out of the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus that the warden spoke to earlier. They have a project underway right now to bring fiber to over 1,100 locations in Elgin County, specifically in West Elgin, Dutton, Dunwich, and the township of Southwold. As well, we were excited to see some new legislation in 2021, where Ontario passed the Supporting Broadband and Infrastructure Expansion Act. This, in keeping with this, was a big funding announcement of about $2 billion to finish up broadband across Ontario. And so from what I understand, ExploreNet is the successful proponent for our area, and they will be connecting the rest of our community with fiber. And so we're keeping close tabs on whether there's a last mile that needs to be considered or additional fiber. But for now, this is all good news. Our economic development and tourism team is doing remarkable work right now, including a new visitor's guide. They've transitioned some of our print-based materials to include QR codes for those who'd prefer a digital copy on their phones. So next slide, please, Susie. We have a couple of websites that you're encouraged to visit, elgintourist.com and progressivebynature.com. Our team will be launching a community engagement project later this fall. And this project will see staff with boots on the ground, visiting our local businesses and touching base to see whether they have any unmet needs, whether they have any concerns, whether there's more work to be done to support them in order to help them retain and create jobs. Additionally, this initiative aims at building relationships with all of our existing businesses and strengthening our community's capacity to identify positive and negative aspects of operating a business in our communities. So more to come on the business retention and expansion project, but when we're out there connecting with businesses, our team hopes to collect data that will inform an action plan that we can use to increase our competitiveness, enable business development, and support job creation. Our Elgin Incentives program has been around for quite a while, and it continues to be incredibly successful. So eligible businesses can receive funding of up to $15,000 per year for commercial and agricultural business improvements. We do invest $80,000 in this plan, and we call it, it's a community improvement plan, but we call it Elgin Incentives. This helps us reach a number of community goals, including facilitating and coordinating the improvement of neighborhoods and designated areas, stimulating economic growth, and assisting businesses and property owners with repairs, restorations, redevelopment projects, and in general, raising awareness for local needs and priorities. Another exciting guide that we received some grant money to support is the Savor Elgin Guide. And the team is busy redeveloping and redesigning this Savor Elgin Guide. They presented a draft copy to County Council today. Has a new logo, a fresh new look and feel, and again, a QR code to reach a wider audience. The team also launched a Welcome Home campaign in 2022, which featured our existing residents and businesses and encouraged them to celebrate what it is that they love about living, working, and playing in Elgin County. So the next phase of the campaign, which was incredibly successful, so the next phase we have to look forward to is furnishing a model home in Elmer with all local vendors and artisans so that we can help promote the unique products that we have in our community and encourage people to buy those. Elgin County was thrilled to work alongside our local municipal partners in Southold on the development of Amazon. So we worked with Broccolini. And this 2 million square foot facility is slated to be among the top 6 highly automated manufacturing plants sorting facilities Amazon operates across the world. And this fulfillment center is anticipated to need 1,500 employees. And so we are working with Amazon to develop plans to meet their needs for employment. Centennial and Elm intersection improvements underway now. Lots of detour signs, lots of calls from residents, and we are listening and hearing and doing what we can to help. And I know OPP, who's behind me, is doing the same. So any type of large disruptive construction project like this does result in some unrest for sure, but we're working to get this done quickly. It's $1.78 million project that will certainly improve an intersection that we have long received complaints about. So looking forward to that. Elgin Middlesex Regional Fire School. Thank you, Chief, for your support of this fire school. But we partnered with fire departments from across and fire services from across Elgin and Middlesex County to make this regional fire school a possibility after the closure of the Gravenhurst facility going back now 2 years. So this training center provides training opportunities using local facilities and provincial and local training staff. So it gives people the opportunity to train nearby with their peers. And we have a great amount of interest in all of our training courses that we're offering. And I know that there are lots of discussions about future opportunities for growth and additional services and programs that could be offered through this training school. So thank you for your partnership. The age-friendly network is something that was very popular a couple of years ago, long before the pandemic. And work is underway to support a renewed age-friendly network. So County Council supported county staff in reigniting this network, getting community representatives and community stakeholders together to help improve senior services in our community. So we've had 2 meetings now, and there's much more to come, but we will be looking for individuals to help be part of the age-friendly network once we're ready. So with that.
Thank you, Julie. It is ideal that the initiatives that are going on at the county supports what's happening locally. The good things are happening locally. And I think we have a lot to be proud of. We seem to work well together, and I encourage us to continue that relationship. Now we'd like to hear from you. What are your local priorities? What is it that we can do better at the county to help support your initiatives? And I encourage you to either, communicate that to me tonight or any, in the coming weeks. And in conclusion of our presentation this evening, and I know it's a little long-winded, but we are willing to entertain any questions that you have regarding our services and our initiatives. And it was just a sampling that you received this evening. As I said, there's a whole host of basket of things going on that we just didn't have time to cover tonight.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, CA Gonyou. Firstly, excellent presentation, very informative. If the council will give me some latitude here, when the landlord's in the building, it's a good time to ask questions. We have a great group of people here, like your folks presenting this evening, Fire Chief Ramarad, Mr. Perrin, Mr. Brooks, our senior staff. And with one camera on the television, we don't get to see these people when they speak like you did this evening. My wish list for 2023 is a second camera so that we could have your good works and the work of our senior team here. The folks at home are asking me who's in the back. And I say that anecdotally, but I think it would be an addition for presenters at county, presenters at Central Elgin. I have enough time with you and you have to spend your time with me as we did this morning. So I'll defer my questions now to the rest of the council. Councillor Halpin. who I believe has a background in library services. So I might know where this question's going.
Thank
Counselor.
you. Yes, this is definitely a comment to start and not a question, but I was so excited to see your fine-free library starting. We had a lot of success with that in London, and I really do think that it made it so much more accessible to such a broad range of people. It was a really healthy change. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But I did have a question as well. I saw something really bold on your Engage Elgin website, and I was excited about that. That was, I've done a lot of reading about municipalities opening comments sections in their media and their social media, but I haven't seen many municipalities doing it. And most of what I read says that it does typically create a really healthy space, but that most people are afraid of the possible negative communications that will come out of it. I saw on your transportation page in Engage Elgin that you guys do have a comments section open. How are you finding that? How long have you been doing it? And what do you typically get out of that?
That's a good question. Maybe one we can't quite answer this evening, but definitely your comments are germane to engaging the community and to having that healthy dialogue with our residents. You know, coming off the heels of COVID, we've kind of entered into a realm of maybe mistrust out there. And it's very unfortunate because we don't need that. We need to move positive initiatives ahead. And if we can find ways of opening up that channel of communication between us, perfect. Then perhaps we can rebuild some relationships here and keep moving the yardsticks forward. Because at the end of the day, all we want to do is improve the social welfare of our residents. We want to make life better.
Any other councillors have questions?
If I may, to
Please.
you, your worship, to members of council. So we recognize the cameras are an issue and it's a supply chain issue resulting from the renovations. So this isn't the final camera setup by any stretch of the imagination. So we hope to have additional cameras mounted. They just haven't come in.
Well, it's
So-
very kind of you. I also want to thank you for, as you said, on the centennial issue, that's an email that Councillor Watson and I have been getting a little bit this week, and you're quick to respond to them. So thanks to you and everyone at the county for helping out on that file. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Elgin Group Police Services Board. If I could ask Dave Jenkins, the Chair of the Police Services Board, and Inspector Mark Loucas, the OPP Detachment Officer, to come forward, please. Inspector Loucas, welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Thank you very much for having me this evening. It's my great pleasure to present the 2022 Elgin County OPP Annual Report. This is a document that we share internally with our detachment members, and we share with all the councils just to summarize the excellent work that's being done within Elgin County. Looking at the presentation, it looks like you have potentially last year's presentation. That's the one. Thank you. I'd just like to, at the very first slide, just bring to your attention, the board has gone through some tremendous changes with respect to the Police Services Board from when I first came here. So we do have a new board this year. And I would like to formally say thank you to former Chair Sally Martin for all her work with the Elgin Group Police Services Board during my time with the Elgin County OPP. If we move to the next page, I'd just like to highlight the organization. 2022 was a busy year for our detachment. We went through an amalgamation with the Chatham-Kent OPP. So we've combined and amalgamated detachments, which has been very beneficial for our members in terms of providing leadership stability, and for Elgin County particularly, because we have a number of additional officers now that we can deploy and resources that we can deploy within Elgin County as needed. If you look at the board composition, which is the next slide, you'll see we are accountable to the Police Services Board, and myself as the inspector, I now have 2 staff sergeants who are operations managers. One is located in St. Thomas, and the second is located in the Chatham Detachment. With that, we have an additional enhancement in terms of the number of patrol sergeants for direct supervision for our members. We have a very robust crime unit and community street crimes unit, and a great deal of civilian staff. you move to the next slide. Fortunately, we're still feeling the repercussions of the pandemic, and which has had a detrimental effect on our auxiliary unit. One of the big highlights of auxiliaries is the ability to come out and do ride-alongs, which is really the reason why many people volunteer their time with us. COVID really put a hamper on that and dramatically hurt the ability for officers to do ride-alongs with frontline patrol officers. And as such, we're in a rebuilding phase right now where we're trying to rebuild our auxiliary unit and are actively recruiting members to volunteer and join with the Elgin County OPP. The next slide will highlight just one of the members. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, although the auxiliary unit has been depleted, the benefit to our organization is we've hired a lot of these members as full-time officers with us. PC Alexander Cullen was just one example who a member who was an auxiliary unit member who's now a full-time employee of the OPP, and she's currently with the Chatham Detachment. If we go through our next slide, page 6 there at the very top, that's our action plan in terms of business planning. So we are completed our 2020 to 2022 action plan. We're waiting anxiously for the release of our new plan from 2023 to 2025. And our organizational commitments will include key organizational commitments set by the OPP, but also set in conjunction with local priorities identified through community consultations. Our previous or our ongoing plan until we get our new plan focused really on crime, traffic enforcement, and other. And in terms of other, we're really focused on generating efficiencies within the detachment. We're able to really do that by creating a collision reporting center, which allows people that have been involved in minor collisions or property damage collisions to come to the office to report those accidents, allowing frontline officers to stay available for other priority calls for service. We've also developed and finalized a transfer of care protocol between the OPP and the St. Thomas Elgin General Hospital. This is in relation to our mobile crisis response team worker. And really the benefit to the community and to our organization is getting our frontline officers back on the road as quickly as possible while utilizing community resources to help those that are most in need. If we look at our crime management plan, I did touch on it. We do have a very robust crime unit in Elgin County. We have a detective sergeant that oversees the crime unit. And also we have a joint collaboration with the Elgin Middlesex Community Street Crimes Unit, or CSU is the acronym that we use for that. That's a very instrumental program, as they're responsible for handling a lot of the drug crimes and property crimes that are encountered within Elgin County and assigning investigators to follow up and help with laying charges. A traffic management strategy. We do have a very well-established traffic management strategy within Elgin County. While all members are encouraged and expected to be proactive in their enforcement efforts on a day-to-day basis, we do have members that are specifically assigned to our traffic management unit, or TMU, whose sole purpose is to really conduct high visibility, proactive enforcement. And when we identify areas in the county that are hotspots, Elgin Centennial is one that's come to mind recently, we generate focus patrols and assign these officers to really gather statistics and provide a community-oriented response to the complaints that we're receiving. Our community policing committees, we have had previously very strong, well-established community policing committees and relationships. Again, we are still suffering the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we do have a few that are very well-established and robust. We are again working at rebuilding that. It's very crucial to us as an organization to have those close ties with our communities. And we're really looking at trying to rebuild those and just re-engage again with the community. We do adopt and follow and adhere to Ontario's mobilization and engagement model of community policing, and community policing committees are a big part of that. If we look at the bottom of this slide here, these are community mobilization projects that have been previously established back in 2018, and they remain ongoing now because they've been identified as still pertinent and relevant to our community. The Elgin Community Drug and Alcohol Strategy Development, the Elder Abuse Prevention Program, Mental Health and Crisis Response Team, Police and Hospital Transition Framework, Seniors and Fraud Scams, and the Rapid Response Group for Alzheimer's Society. The next slide just deals basically with our Elgin County drug and alcohol strategy, and it's based on 4 pillars: prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and then the justice and community safety. I'd just like to highlight the community safety officer and media officer. So we have gone through a transition in that role as well. And if any of you receive all of our media blast outs or on the news portal, Constable Brett Fair is responsible for really trying to engage with the community through social media. So a lot of the media releases outlining a lot of the good investigations that are taking place in Elgin County and some significant noteworthy community events, just trying to really highlight the relationships that we have in the community as policing partners and basically trying to get those good news stories out. As we move through to special projects, we do have an ATV and Marine Patrol program in Elgin County. ATVs were a priority of mine when I came to the detachment based on community feedback and response. We have a very well-established ATV trailing network in Elgin County, and unfortunately, Elgin County didn't have any ATVs. I worked in consultation with our Fleet Supply and Weapons Services Bureau, and we were able to acquire 2 ATVs that are located permanently in Elgin County that we can deploy throughout the region. There's been good mixed reviews based on that. There's been some community concern. People worried, are they going to get ticketed for being out there? And our main goal is really to have high visibility and provide a sense of safety so people know that we are out there and we're not just frivolously laying tickets. We're out there for that proactive engagement. Our Marine program is now that we've taken over and amalgamated with the Chatham Detachment, the benefit for us locally here is we have 2 large vessels that we can deploy in Lake Erie or wherever needed. So unfortunately, there's been some occurrences where we've had missing overdue boaters, some drownings, and having those 2 boats in the water and working in conjunction with our other stakeholders, with our fire department, has really been a game changer for us in improving public safety. If we move down to the Community Street Crimes Unit slide, we've had a very successful year, very busy year. The CSU's investigated over 146 occurrences. They've executed 133 judicial warrants, charged 104 persons, and laid over 675 charges. That's countless hours of investigative work that goes into these cases, not including the time that's spent in court testifying and prepping for the court case matters themselves. I've highlighted just some of the notable ones that have occurred throughout the last year here. The very first one focuses on an investigation back in April 19th, 2022, and it was a collaboration between our Community Street Crimes Unit and the Oxford Community Street Crimes Unit, and really involved a stolen vehicle and basically thefts of high-end motor vehicles. And this investigation resulted in the seizure of a 2022 GMC truck, Polaris equipment, tools and equipment, and most significantly was the firearm that was unregistered and unlawfully possessed by the accused, which we were able to seize and get back off the streets. As we move through, a lot of them you'll see some drug investigations that were very well done. And I think the trend that was most concerning that we were really trying to focus on was not only the opioids and different types of drugs that are entering Elgin County, but the presence and prevalence of firearms. Our priority is to get those drugs off the street and get those firearms out of the hands of the accused. We move down to the detachment statistics slide. You'll see that the trends in calls for service from 2018 to 2022 have really been trending upwards. 2020 obviously was the anomaly, and it's because we anticipate that with more people being home, which saw a reduction in property crimes, which saw a reduction in our calls for service. However, now 2022 and moving into this year, I expect to see a dramatic spike. And I know when I'm reporting on our quarterly reports to the Police Services Board, everything is trending upwards. And I anticipate 2023 to be one of our busiest years yet. We've broken down the calls for service by zone. Central Elgin does have the highest calls for service, and we equate that also because we do have Port Stanley and some of the beaches in Central Elgin, which really attract a great deal of tourists during the summer months. I touched on our traffic safety unit. You'll see that we did conduct over 690 ride checks in 2022. We do apply for and receive grant funding for ride programs. And these are specifically noticeable during the festive ride season from November till Christmas, where we have rides taking place at all times during the day into the evening. And not only is it great for that community police interaction, but it's also an ability for us to engage with our other stakeholders. So we have joint ride checks and initiatives with the St. Thomas Police and the Elmer Police and the London Police, which is really good for fostering that interoperability between all those departments. As we move to the next slide, again, just discussing some of the motor vehicle collisions. We have seen a dramatic decrease in fatal motor vehicle collisions during the past year, which has been extremely beneficial. The only way we can attribute to that is a great deal of public education campaigns, a lot of high visibility enforcement, and luckily we had a very mild winter with the roads are fairly decent throughout the winter. You'll see that we have had an increase in property damage crime, and we do attribute that. We do have a wildlife issue here. We're not immune to it, and depending on when you drive by the detachment, you see a lot of damaged cruisers in the back parking lot, and that's just due to car, deer, motor vehicle collisions. The benefit to that is the majority of the ones that we've encountered and seen have been very minor in nature, but it is something that we're aware of, and we're going to work with our community partners to see what kind of strategies we can develop moving forward. If we go by collisions by primary cause, you will see that the animal wildlife is the highest causal factor for the collisions that we experience in our area. And we are happy to see that the big four causal factors such as speeding, alcohol related offenses, we're really targeting those and trying to eliminate and reduce those numbers in our county. If we look through the crime prevention slide, we're very lucky and fortunate in Elgin County where we're not really seeing a lot of the issues that some of the bigger areas, bigger municipalities are encountering. Our violent crime rates are very low, and looking at our crime rate index, we're well within the provincial norms, and in many cases, we're ahead of provincial norms in terms of where our statistics are based on the enforcement and the investigations that we're doing here. Property crimes, our clearance rates are a little bit lower than some other municipalities, and we do attribute that to the fact that a lot of these property crimes are occurring in rural areas where there are not many witnesses. There's not a lot of counter surveillance, so it's very difficult for us to follow up and investigate some of these, and that's why you'll see some of the clearance rates are a little bit lower than what we'd like to see. Our drug crimes have been fairly consistent from 2021 to 2022 and very low in comparison to what other municipalities are experiencing. In terms of our billing model, I've included that for financial reporting in here as well. You see that we do abide by the provincial cost per property billing model, and we are on average seeing a decrease in the billing model. I'd like to say that that's due in part because of all the efficient work that's been completed. But the reality is, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of officers through attrition within our organization, which has resulted in reduction in the billing model because we have less officers out on the road. Having said that, now that we have the amalgamation completed and with the growing that's taking place within Elgin County, we'll look to see what the trends will take us in terms of dealing with our municipal policing bureau and what that relates to in terms of our annual billing costs. We broke down the calls for service by day. Some of you may be aware that the Auditor General's report, when it reviewed the OPP, there were some discussions regarding to what our shift times were and why they were structured the way they were. Luckily, we were ahead of the curve. We do abide by the analytical data and intelligence-led policing model. So we preemptively had already adjusted our schedules so that we do have not just simply a 6 to 6 or 7 to 7. We have different and staggered start times throughout the day. The reason twofold: one, more officers to investigate calls for service during peak times, and also to reduce and eliminate overtime. In terms of criminal records checks, as of June, the criminal records checks program have gone completely online. So whereas before members would come into detachment to get criminal records checks completed, this program has gone completely online now. So that's, again, reduce the workload for administrative staff at the detachment. I touched briefly about the ride grant. We do apply every year for that grant funding, and this year we did receive $14,800 from the government to assist with the festive ride programs and our ride grant funding, and we've had a very successful year. The last few slides are just some of the slides for local events and partnerships and that we've attended, just to try to re-engage with the community and make sure that people know that we do want to engage as much as possible with our youth and with the community in the area. Subject to any questions, that's the annual report presentation for this year.
Thank you, Inspector. Any comments or questions from the council? Very well. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. I'm Dave Jenkins. I chair the Elgin Group Police Services Board. And just a quick aside before I start my little report, I want to thank Central Elgin, put on another hat that I wear. Thank you for hosting and supporting Childhood Cancer Polar Bear Dip in March 4th in Port Stanley this year. We are a childhood cancer family. Mayor Sloan, members of Central Elgin Council. I'm the chair of the Elgin Group Police Services Board. The Police Services Board consists of 5 board members, and I'm pleased to introduce those individuals at this time. Representing West Elgin, Dutton Dunwich, and Southold is Ida McCollum. Ida has served as vice chair of the board in the past and has served on the board for a number of years, and she, just for your information, is a former resident as a young girl in Central Elgin. Central Elgin's representative on the board is your mayor, Mayor Andrew Sloan, and this is Andrew's first time on the board. And alternately, Malahide and Bayham share a board member, but Central Elgin, Malahide, and Bayham require that their representative on the board is a municipal council member. And so Malahide and Bayham, as I say, alternate their member. And their member this year is the mayor of Malahide, Dominique Giguère. And our vice chair is Trudy Canellis. Trudy is a provincial appointee and has served on the board for a few years. Trudy is from Southold and is also active in the Southold Community Policing Committee. I am also a provincial government appointee and am from Malahide, or as I like to say, formerly South Dorchester, and have served on the board for over 2 years and was elected chair in January. One of the things that we did do, a couple of things that we did do at our very first meeting on January 30th, and once I became chair and we elected chair and vice chair, I asked our board to rise for a moment of silence in memory and respect for Constable Greg Percola, who was the OPP officer killed in Hagersville area. And that led us to another issue. And you, as your township, or municipality, have received letters from us, as did every municipality here in Elgin County. Excuse me, I have to put these on, printing's a bit small, but one of the issues of the new Police Services Board has addressed this year is that of bail reform. And as chairman of the board, I'm deeply concerned about the state of Canada's catch and release bail system, which has led to a public safety crisis. We recently joined a nationwide demand for changes to the Canadian Criminal Code and other federal legislation related to the bail system. This call for reform comes in response to the tragic shooting of Constable Greg Percola, who was killed by an individual out on bail, alleged to be killed by an individual out on bail for firearms offenses with a lifetime ban on owning guns and a warrant already for their arrest. We've seen numerous repeat offenders in our area, some with up to 12 separate interactions with police and the judicial system. These offenders have committed significant criminal offenses, including robbery, assault, break and enter, sexual assault, and domestic violence related offenses. Moreover, many of these individuals have demonstrated previous violence, and monitoring them out on bail has been a drain on our police resources. Earlier this year, we issued a press release to help raise awareness in the community on this important issue. We believe that legislative reform is needed to address the bail process with respect to violent repeat offenders and firearms charges. And we are committed to working with our justice system to ensure that we have a safe community for all. If you have any questions about bail reform or other police services board members, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'll take, if anybody has any questions, I'll take them right now if you'd like.
Thank you very much. Dave, any questions or? So, Deputy Mayor Noble, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Jenkins, how do we support you in the bail reform?
If you would like to do is what we did, we also sent letters to our MP and to our MPP. There is a growing movement for that, and certainly that would certainly help. And I think if you would also like to forward them to the Federal Minister of Justice, I think that would be also good, a good move as well. It's a growing movement, and I think our police officers, like anyone, have the right to go home at the end of a shift to their families safely. When you consider that we have seen in the last 7 months, I believe 7 police officers in this province killed. If there's any other questions, I'll answer them. If not, I would like to hand things over to Carolyn Braun, who is our Secretary and Administrator of the Police Services Board.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Welcome, Ms. Cron.
Thank you. Through you, your worship, to council. I'm just going to provide a brief update on the Community Safety and Policing Act tonight. So as background, policing in Ontario is currently governed by the Police Services Act and its regulations. Under the PSA, police services oversee how policing is provided in the local community. So the Police Services Board works with local citizens and organizations to ensure that their communities receive the policing that they need. In March 2019, the province passed the Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act and established the Community Safety and Policing Act, which once in force will repeal the Police Services Act. The Community Safety and Policing Act seeks to provide municipalities receiving OPP policing with greater civilian governance of police by having the opportunity to present their local perspectives, needs, and priorities. It is anticipated that this will increase the responsiveness and transparency of OPP policing in these communities. So under this new act, the Community Safety and Policing Act, Section 10 OPP agreements will be terminated and Section 10 OPP boards will be dissolved. An OPP detachment board will be established in place of the current Police Services Board, and Section 10 municipalities were required to submit an application for their preferred composition for the new OPP detachment board. So on behalf of the participating municipalities, the Secretary Administrator submitted this application in June of 2021 for a status quo board. So it would be the same composition as it is now, and the chair went over that earlier in the meeting. So some municipalities have heard back from the ministry. We are still waiting to hear from them on the status of our application. So once the new board composition is confirmed by the ministry, and the Community Safety and Policing Act comes into force, the Police Services Board will dissolve and the new OPP Detachment Board will be established. So this process will involve the passing of bylaws by each participating municipality and the appointment of members to the new OPP Detachment Board. So once this new board is formed, participating municipalities will have the opportunity to review board member compensation as they establish and agree on a new budget for the board. So this was something that the municipalities had previously requested, a review of board member compensation. So we will keep you updated on the board composition application status, and we'll let you know when we hear back from the ministry. And before I conclude, I just have some bittersweet news to share with you. I'd like to share that Inspector Loucas will be leaving the Elgin County OPP to start a new position at the West Region headquarters effective May 8th. So we will greatly miss Inspector Loucas, but we are happy for him in this new position, and we will be working closely with the OPP as we recruit a new detachment commander. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cron. I heard the news and we wish Inspector Loucas well on his future endeavors. And council, any questions going forward? Perhaps this is something we could use your appearance here tonight to, if it's the will of council, to write a letter on bail reform. Happy to chat about that and see if that's something council wants to direct me to do as mayor, or in fact, mayor and council. So I'd be happy to do that. Thank you for your presentation, and we appreciate your time. Thank you. And folks, if you don't mind, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you, thank you very much. Moving along in the agenda. Correspondence requiring action. We don't have any. Received for information. There's a few items. Any comments or questions from council on the information that we've received? Seeing none, if I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Noble and Councillor Bachman.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Bogman, that correspondence items number 1 to 6 be received as information and filed.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving into reports, Central Elgin Planning Office, CEP 1523, an application for draft plan of subdivision approval, proposed draft conditions 37719 Lake Line, Strathroy Turf Farms. Council, any questions or comments? Seeing none, if I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Noble, Councillor Watson.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that report CEP 1523 be received, and further that council approve the attached municipal draft plan conditions to be forwarded to the acting manager of planning for the County of Elgin with a request that they be included in the county's decision on the proposed draft plan of subdivision.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving along. Next is from the Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, ICS 0923, Port Stanley Sewage Treatment Plant Improvements. I'm sure council's had an opportunity to look at this document. Did anyone wish to speak, or did anyone have any questions or comments? Councillor Halpin, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sloan. I wanted, before we made a decision on this, to confirm that so the holes in the steel were described as highly unusual and not what you would have expected for the life expectancy. Was it fully confirmed that that is a ventilation problem, and that with the ventilation changed, that we won't expect to see that problem again if we invest in repairing this?
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. Mr. Brooks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Halpin. The problem really comes down to elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide coming into the screen and grit tanks. We do believe the upgrades to the odor control unit, we've doubled the amount of air that's drawn out of the tanks. That will help, in combination with the repair to the air release chamber on the force main on the way to the plant. Those in combination should help to extend the life expectancy of the tanks.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Councillor Halpin, follow up.
Thank you. And I owe you an apology for that. I see that we're looking to take the money for this out of the reserve, and I meant to look up what we have in the reserve before I got here, but I got looking at other parts of the agenda. What do we have in the reserve right now?
Mr. Brooks.
I believe we have about $1.6 million in the wastewater reserve.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Before we go to Councillor Graham, I take it there wasn't a warranty on this piece of equipment?
There was a 1-year warranty. That piece of equipment came into service in January of 2018. The corrosion was identified in 2021, so it was past warranty.
I figured. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Councillor Graham, please.
Just to clarify, Mr. Brooks, so why were there elevated levels? Do we know why there were?
Please.
We don't know the exact cause of the elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide. We know that there are some factors that would contribute to that. One of them being raw sewage in some parts of Port Stanley is pumped 3 times before it gets to the plant. So as it's pumped, it's mixed up and air gets into that, and that's what helps cause a release of hydrogen sulfide. As well as we have lower than ideal turnover in the sanitary force main that goes from Carlo Road up to the wastewater treatment plant. Typically, you'd like to see the sewage that gets pumped into that force main. And so we have a pump station called Pump Station 51, which is the main pump station in Port Stanley. It fills up to a certain level and pumps sewage up to the plant up on Scotch Line. So all of that sewage isn't pumped through one cycle. So what happens is some of that sewage falls back down into some of the low areas on that force main. We believe that force main may be oversized and we don't get that turnover. We'd like the turnover to happen every 2 to 3 hours, but we believe that it's happening only every 12 hours. And that's the force main that was built in the 1970s. So that, in combination with the amount of times it's pumped, creates that elevated level of hydrogen sulfide.
Thank you. Any more questions? Deputy Mayor Noble, please.
Through Mr. Mayor, is there a procedure that we can put in place to monitor this? So in 5 years, we're not having this expense again and my next question to Mr. Brooks is, will we expect that kind of corrosion in that force main, that oversized force main?
Mr. Brooks.
To answer the first part of your question there, staff will just continue to monitor it to see what level of corrosion, may begin to form, and we'll address it, as soon as it does begin. Hopefully, the problem solved with the upgrades to the odor control unit. And, we don't have any other repairs until the end of the life expectancy of the tanks. And I apologize, I didn't catch the second part of your question.
Just with the elevated levels that we're creating the corrosion, will that cause a corrosion problem with the force main as well?
Potentially, we're not sure. If council approves this proposal here, we will be cutting in the force main to make a repair to the air release valve on the force main. So we'll be able to get an opportunity to, cut into the middle of that force main and see the condition of that force main. So, once we undertake this work, we'll have a better idea.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Councillor Graham, please.
Mr. Brooks, so was this a brand new system in 2017 or was this a pre-existing? It was just replaced?
This was a brand new unit brought online in 2018. Previously, the raw sewage was pumped into the lagoons, so we didn't have it pumped into an indoor unit such as what we have right now.
Thank you. Council, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, if I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bachman, Councillor Halpin.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Councillor Halpin, that report ICS 923 regarding Port Stanley sewage treatment plant improvements be received for information, and that Council of the Municipality of Central Elgin increase the budget for this project to $360,000 with a transfer of $110,000 from the sanitary sewer reserve account.
Thank you, Ms. Leach. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next up, the Director of Fire Resources, Director of Fire Rescue Services, our Fire Chief. Any questions or comments about the report? Chief, any comments?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Halpin, Deputy Mayor Noble.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that report FS 423 regarding monthly alarm activities report, March 2023, be received for information.
All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Director of Asset Management Development Services, AMDS 1323, an application for exemption to the noise bylaw number 212 as amended. Does any councillor have any questions on this item? Pretty self-explanatory, I think. Seeing that, could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Connors and Councillor Watson.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Connor, seconded by Councillor Watson, that council grant an exemption to bylaw number 212, being a bylaw to control noise in the Municipality of Central Elgin as amended, to allow the Municipality of Central Elgin to complete a 24-hour harbor dredging project that will be taking place between July 1st, 2023 and January 1st, 2024.
All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Moving on to number 2, AMDS 1523, Barnacles Beer House and Eatery. Request for extension of patio. I'm going to ask Mr. Perrin. I think he's going to speak to this because council, you'll see there are some options. Mr. Perrin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the report. And actually, Ms. Cardoso put a plan up on the screen for council's review. So actually, the proprietor of Barnacles actually applied to the municipality for an extension to their liquor license. And that was reviewed by the chief building official as well as Chief Omerod. They actually have purview of those licensing under the Liquor Licensing Act. And they subsequently have turned down the application. And this came to light today, and I apologize for it not being included in the staff report that council has in front of you. However, the key issue to keep in mind here is that the property that is being requested for the extension of the patio is not on the Barnacles property. It's on the residential property to the west. So the driveway that is on the to the west of the existing patio that has a red car on it is actually the driveway to the property of 329.
Excuse me, may I interrupt for a moment, Mr. Perrin?
Yep.
I looked at purchasing the property 10 years ago. It's all the same property.
There are actually two parcels, I believe. And even if they are one, the other thing that comes into play here is that the purple lines that are on the plan attached are the zoning boundaries. So you can see that the purple line that surrounds the Barnacles, that zoning on that property is a B zone. So it's a business zone which permits a patio. The lands that's being sought for the extension of the patio are actually zoned residential. So if council is in favor of it or is receptive to consideration, then staff would respectfully suggest that the owner of Barnacles should pre-consult with the municipality as required by council's policy with respect to plan approvals. And we can discuss what their options are with respect to changing the rezoning on that property for the to the west of the existing patio. That's assuming that they are actually one parcel of land, but our records show that they're two separate parcels.
When I saw the listing, the house and the actual restaurant were sold as one. Secondly, since we've given them this extension for the last 3 years, would that say if we did that obviously when it was on residential property, is there any issue that the Central Elgin, having done that for the last 2 or 3 years during COVID, would be in any kind of consequence for that place?
I'll start and then Mr. or Chief Omerod can maybe hop in and add to it. But the rules of engagement were quite different previously because of COVID. So patios were allowed to be extended onto municipal property. There wasn't any consideration for zoning of those lands where patios were extended. The intent of the relaxation of the liquor licensing and extension of outdoor dining was put in place by the province through AGCO to help mitigate the impacts of reduced occupancy on enclosed facilities like restaurants and bars. So while there may have been a patio there previously in the last couple of years, that was still within the COVID regime. And now that's been relaxed. And now there's the requirement for them to go through the process to be able to extend those patios and require municipal approval.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sloan. So if I understand correctly, it sounds like in an ideal world, staff would like to see evidence furnished about whether the properties are or are not merged, and then also to see that area rezoned.
Yeah, so the first step would be a legal opinion or deeds that show that they are in fact one parcel of property. So that's the first step. And then if they are in fact one parcel of property, we don't believe they are, but if we've been wrong before, if they R1 property, then the area wanting to be the patio extended should go through a rezoning process or some type of planning approval. And then if that's the case, then comes in the options within the report with respect to cash in lieu of parking or burn it down.
Thank you. I guess also, since we've had some new information here, would it also be fair to say that there'd be an option 4, approve the request seasonally for this season pending further investigation? Oh, Mr. Graves.
Your worship, I think council would be wise, and I don't think it would take too long to have a planning scan. And it doesn't take long to check the property. There's systems to do that and have a report come back just with that update as soon as possible, and maybe still in time for the season, but I think that should be done. Because I think they wanted to make a permanent situation here, and I think you want to make sure you've got, I don't know what their investment is to make that permanent situation, in terms of if they have to build more patio, whatever, but I would think you'd want to have that further information that's come to light sort of clarified for your decision making, which I think could be done fairly quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. So is it, we're now going to, I guess we'll defer this to the next meeting for future discussion. Do I need a motion for that?
I think it'd be wise just to defer the matter.
If I could get a deferral motion, please. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Halpin, Councillor Bachman.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Bogman, that the matter be deferred to the next regular meeting of council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. MDS 1623, March 2023 monthly bylaw reports. Council have any questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Barron, please.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor, the AMDS 20.23, the zoning bylaw urban design guidelines.
I'm sorry, I have 16.23. Am I in the wrong place, Mr. Barron?
Yeah, I think you just, you went to item 4 on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, rather than item 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm going off the agenda. Sorry, my apologies.
No problem. Thank you. Questions or comments on AM 1623, the monthly bylaw reports? Mover and a seconder, I think we had. And if I could have a vote, please. Oh, you don't have a mover and a seconder. I apologize. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Noble, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that report AMDS 1623 regarding March 2023 monthly bylaw report be received for information.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 4, AMDS 1723, the March 2023 monthly building report. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, if I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Halpin, Councillor Connors.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Connors, that report AMDS 1723 regarding the March 2023 monthly building report be received for information.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 5, which is 20.23 zoning bylaw update and urban design guidelines engagement plan. So before we go to questions or comments for council, Mr. Perrin, did you wish to speak?
Sure, briefly, Mr. Mayor. So as council recalled, that the municipality went out for a competitive process to engage the services of a consulting engineer to undertake our comprehensive zoning bylaw update, as well as draft the urban design guidelines. That proposal was evaluated based on a 2-envelope process. Dillon Consulting and a lot of the consultants bid their proposals based on utilizing both virtual meetings on some meetings, as well as in-person meetings. Staff, we have been made aware that, council may wish to go away from virtual meetings. For example, on the Talbot Line zoning open house that we had with the landowners. I believe there were some concerns raised about virtual meeting platforms on that meeting. So as a result, we asked Dylan, when the technical team met with Dylan to consider the first meeting that they have for public engagement. They had it proposed as a virtual meeting, and we have that as an in-person meeting. There was discussion back and forth that there may be actually a benefit to have a hybrid model, so people can either attend in person if they're more comfortable, or virtually if they're not able to, and even go so far as that we could tape that, and then someone that wasn't able to attend that evening could provide feedback and engagement after the fact for a short period of time. So with that, Dylan's saying they're more than happy to do that. There is an additional fee that they're suggesting, and that fee is $6,425 to take that meeting to an in-person meeting. On top of that, staff are requested that the consulting team provide an engagement plan, which is attached to this report for council's review and approval and sign off. And that will set the stage for all the public engagement throughout the process. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that council may have. Additionally, if you want an in-person meeting, staff would suggest that if we do that, we find a venue more central to the municipality, within the municipality. Possibly see if there's something that we can do with the New Salem Public School where it is central within the municipality, and then have that virtual platform in addition to.
Thank you. I have Councillor Halpin, I believe, and then Councillor Graham. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sloan, that was my first question, was what are we going to do to make sure that it is somewhere where all of the wards can equally reach that space? So I do appreciate that. The other thing that I wanted to know about was when I looked at the list of potential contacts for this process, I saw that it did recommend talking with the BIA, for example, and other groups, but it also had some sort of informal groups described where it hadn't declared who the contact will be yet. It had just proposed the one will be found. And I wondered whether then it would be appropriate for us to look to have contacts included to represent the Sparta business area and also Belmont, just because those also would be concerned about the business zoning.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. Mr. Perrin, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Halpin. So the contact list that is appended to the community engagement plan is actually contacts that we glean from other public processes for planning approvals. The official plan update, Harbor Secondary, these are agencies or groups that showed interest in those that wanted to be kept abreast. The contact and contact info, we have that just from a personal identification. We've redacted that from the council report. But your point's well made. If council has other groups that you feel should be contacted to advise of the engagement strategy, we're more than happy to do that. Just forward those off to staff, and we'll ensure that they're contacted to advise of any public consultation that we're going to be undertaking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. Councillor Graham, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Perrin. So the tendering process was a combination of virtual and in-person meetings from what you've said. And now, because we're going to have in-person meetings, they want to charge an additional $6,400 for the first meeting to be in person. Is that correct?
Mr. Perrin.
Yeah, for the first meeting, the rest of the meetings, when you look at them, they're all the rest are in-person meetings. But that first one was intended to be a virtual meeting through their proposal.
Councillor Graham.
And my understanding is that we're securing the venue, any costs for that are ours. So I'm just wondering what $6,400 is why $6,400 is being charged for one meeting for in person.
Mr. Perrin, please.
There would be a number of staff at that meeting. So similar to what we've done with Harbor Secondary Plan, as well as the official plan, that there would be breakout tables. So there will be a number of staff from Dillon there as well as Central Elgin to help facilitate that discussion at those breakout tables and preparation of materials for that event. In all likelihood, we're probably looking at 2.5, potentially 3 hours to do that work with a number of staff from Dillon, the materials, and then transportation costs to get to the meeting.
So if I may, Mr. Perrin, who does the workout sessions now that it's virtual? Sorry, you said that they would be doing virtual, if they were in person, they would do workout sessions. How does that happen virtually?
We can still do that virtually through virtual meeting platforms where we can actually have breakout rooms that would have a facilitator that would still allow for that breakout session to happen virtually with people that attended that evening. We would be able to post that video, both of the presentation as well as the breakout room. We may not do the breakout room, but we would absolutely do the meeting, the public meeting component, the presentation component virtually, and then and record that. And then the public could participate through a questionnaire after the fact to get their input on certain things as well.
Mr. Perrin, you've done many of these. I know I've seen you at a few over the years. Is the public better served to have Dillon on the premises, in your opinion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think there's more of a comfort level with some attendees to be in person, without a doubt. Some people aren't as comfortable on a virtual platform as others. Some people's internet may not necessarily be as good, depending where they are in the municipality. In the rural areas, connectivity may be a bit of a problem. My experience is when you have those people sitting around a table and, a map and, policies or potential policies or trends in zoning, and people can have that open and discussion. Sometimes they feel they're maybe better heard, we'll say.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Councillor Graham.
Were there other bidders that were encompassed all in-person meetings?
No, I believe I said earlier that all the bidders utilize both virtual and in-person meetings. Actually, Dillon were the one that used more in-person meetings than others, actually.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Mr. Graves, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe just for some perspective from my side, I've been involved over a number of years with a number of these zoning bylaws and design guide updates. And I know that that these are like a couple of the most important documents that you'll be working with as a council, and it guides the course of your community for years to come. And it's really important that you get it right, which you will. And it's really important that the public has a voice in articulating what's important to them. I've also been on the side of trying to figure out why the cost to have the consultants come and do the meetings, because it does seem high. But that's what the prices of doing business and putting these plans together is. And I can't defend the price. All I can say is that I've experienced it. I think it's good to have them in person. I think you get better dialogue. You get a lot of interaction with the public that come out because they can talk to someone and feel comfortable talking to someone. I don't like the prices either, but I just know that that's in the realm of what these things cost. But these are extremely important processes for the municipality and extremely important documents.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Any other questions or comments from any of the council? Deputy Mayor Noble.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Perrin, is there an option to have them do the in-person at the first one and then maybe do a virtual on one of the other ones that they propose to do virtual? I know we're trying to do a lot of things, but then keep budget in mind, but I'll just leave that with you.
Mr. Perrin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Noble, I would suggest that the latter meetings are every bit as important for public feedback, because those are the meetings that draft policies are going to start to be presented, and to get feedback on what those draft policies are. Some people may be used to a certain area of the municipality where, for example, they're used to a certain side yard setback, whether it be 10 or 15 feet. And we're going to be looking at those and modernizing those to get down to satisfy the direction of the province, where we're looking at, a 1 meter or 1.2 meter setback, those may not necessarily be well received by some members of the community. And those types of feedback and interactions are probably just as important as that initial public engagement meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Halpin, Deputy Mayor Noble.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that report AMDS 2023 zoning bylaw update and urban design guidelines engagement plan be received for information, and that council provide direction respecting the format of public engagement event number 1, and further that council approve the public engagement plan as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we're on to bylaws, Ms. Leach. Very good.
Excuse me, Mr.
Pardon
Mayor, I
me,
just
Mr.
wanted,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Graves.
looking for any further direction on that first meeting just before we move forward.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Graves. Mr. Perrin?
Sorry, so I am assuming that you want an in-person meeting for the first one. I'm sorry for assuming, but that's the way I'm taking.
I've been having some email, but I thought it did say those were the 3 things we were approving.
I believe, and Ms. Leach can correct me, I believe it said, the resolution said that council provide direction with respect to public engagement number 1.
Oh, okay. And the direction is that we will utilize a hybrid format using in-person and virtual formats for public engagement at event number 1. Correct?
So that would be option 1.
I think yes, but we're also approving the engagement plan for the comprehensive zoning bylaw and urban design guideline project and identification of any stakeholders that are not currently noted in the engagement plan. Mr. Barron, is that fair?
That's correct. So
Okay, Ms. Leach.
Would you like me to reread the motion, Mr. Mayor?
Don't know if we need to, but you're welcome to. I think we're good. Thank you very much. Mr. Barron, you're good with that? Great, thank you. Bylaws.
Mayor Sloan,
Oh, pardon me.
I move that we divide bylaw 2785 from the others and discuss it separately.
Okay, thank you. Is that how do I? We a seconder for that? Councillor Bachman. We now, I guess, have a vote on whether it's done separately.
Mr. Mayor, I think the request was just that bylaw number 4 be treated separately. I don't think you need a motion for that. I think you can just do the 3 and then the 4th one separately.
Okay. Councillor Halpin, is that okay? Very good. If I could get a mover and a seconder for bylaw 2781, please. Councillor Connors, Councillor Watson. Very good. Bylaw 2781, bylaw 2782, and bylaw 2783. Would that be fair if I could ask for a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Watson, Councillor Connors.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Connors, that bylaw 2781, 2782, and 2783 be read a first and second time.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaw 2785. Appointment of interim CAO clerk. If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Counselor Connors. Counselor Watson.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Connors, seconded by Counselor Watson, that bylaw 2785 be read a first and second time.
All those. Please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sloan. Bylaw 2785 proposes that we appoint Wendell Graves as our CAO clerk for Central Elgin. We are encouraged to take him as our interim by Tim Doby, who has assured us that it could be 4 or even 6 months to hire a new CAO. Mr. Doby presented only Mr. Graves to us as a viable candidate. Meanwhile, HR reports that we already have over a dozen applicants for the position, and we are intended to choose our hiring committee tonight. So we are in fact on track to hire much more quickly than what Mr. Doby has proposed to us. This conflicting information would in and of itself give me pause, but it is compounded in that I feel that we need to question our current working relationship with Mr. Doby and the credibility of the information that we have been receiving from him. Since our last regular meeting, I have acquired emails related to his hiring. And although we voted to contract him on January 25th without any prior notice, in fact, Mayor Sloan had made a decision to hire him in November and had directed Paul Shipway to make the necessary arrangements for that and to begin work with him. And it was not until Mr. Shipway had refused repeatedly to do so without direction from council that matter did come before us. In the phone conversation between Mr. Doby and Mr. Shipway, he described himself and Mayor Sloan as friends. And that is in stark contrast to Mr. Doby telling me that he would not have known Mayor Sloan to see him. And Mayor Sloan telling me on the 25th when we voted that he had recently become aware of a consultant. It is, however, in keeping with Doby's offer to find an interim CAO as a personal favor to Mayor Sloan. And it is in keeping with his having told me other lies, including that he had not previously known Mr. Graves. So tonight we find ourselves voting to accept this interim CAO only on the advice of a consultant with whom we do not have a contract, who is acting as a favor to a single member of council, who has lied to me and who may have lied to you. I have not been unhappy with the work that Mr. Graves has done, and I am not suggesting that we should absolutely not appoint him, but I am suggesting that we do not have to move blindly into every vote. And when we can see that there is something wrong with the relationship, we should be questioning why that is the basis for our decision making. So I ask that instead of appointing Mr. Graves tonight, we ask for direction from our own HR, who has a much more vested interest in our well-being and is serving Central Elgin rather than one individual.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Halpin. Councillor Graham, did you have a comment?
No, other than to call the vote on the appointment of Mr. Graves.
Okay, would you make the motion, please?
I'm making the motion that to appoint Mr. Graves as interim CAO.
Thank you. If I could have a seconder, please. Councillor Watson. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That bylaws 2781, 2782, 2783, and 2785 be read a first and a second time. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor, sorry. Okay. Apologies. That bylaw 271, 2872, 2783, and 2785 be read a third time and finally passed. If I could get a mover and a seconder. Councillor Watson, Councillor Connors. Sorry, Councillor Graham.
Sorry, when the previous CAO was here and we were discussing the towers, I'd asked him to look into the radius of the towers. And he said he was going to ask Mr. Perrin that, and I've never received any feedback on that.
Mr. Perrin.
So the tower locations are based on mapping the topography as well as the signal strength to allow coverage over the village. So on the December 12th agenda, council had a report that you approved the location of those towers. So with respect to the actual radius, it depends, sorry, it depends on the topography, and they all work interconnected because signal strength runs from one tower over to another one, as well as interconnection with fiber optic on the road allowance that services these towers. So I can't give you the exact because it depends on where that tower is located. Could be 300 meters radius. It could be less than that depending on the topography.
Councillor Graham, please.
Would the shared tower not have that information so that you could get that for us, please?
So are you asking that where the coverage is for each tower?
I'm asking for the radius of coverage for each tower, yes.
Thank you. We do have a bylaw that we're looking at. Any advice here on next steps? Is Mr. Perrin, please?
Did I miss something? I thought we've already passed, council already passed that bylaw. You passed first and second and then the third reading.
So it's just a point of information for you, Councillor Graham. I'm getting a little mixed up in the bylaw area.
Yeah.
We've had an earlier mix up, so I don't know if
No.
I apologize. Sorry.
So the bylaw is authorizing the mayor and clerk or CAO to execute the agreement with shared tower with respect to the particulars of allowing those towers to be located on municipal property, because all those towers are located on municipal property as per the report that was presented on December the 12th.
Thank you, Ms. Leach.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Connors, that bylaw 2781, 2782, 2783, and 2785 be read a third time and finally passed.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Other business. Mr. Graves.
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, just coming on board, I wasn't sure where things were at with the findings report relating to the Mr. Dobby report. I connected with him today, and as I understand it, I think the next thing on that checklist is to have a session with council to review the findings, and I think that'll be a public session. He's looking for direction for that we would arrange that meeting, and then following that, I think the last thing on the list is to have a sort of a joint session with council and staff, just about sort of a team building and relationship building session. So I guess your worship, if we had a motion to direct administration, and we will arrange the appropriate date to have Mr. Dobie come and speak to council on the report.
Thank you. If I could get a motion, please. Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Halpin. Thank you very much.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Halpin, that staff be directed to arrange the presentation of the findings report by Tim L. Dobby Consulting Limited at an open session during a regular meeting of council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now the CAO Clerk Recruitment Selection Committee. Mr. Grace.
Thank you, Worship, and I've just spent a little bit of time just understanding again this process through your HR manager, and I understand that the process is underway, which is great, and that there are a number of applications that have been received to date. I think the applications process is open until the end of this month. So at this juncture in time, the council needs to select a recruitment committee. That's typical process, usually made up of about 3 members of council that helps to shortlist the applications and do some initial interviewing with the application. And then ultimately, there would be a short list of candidates, maybe 2 or 3 that would be brought to council for a full interview at the end of the process. So I think at this point in time, the goal, your worship, would be to have a committee appointed by council to work with HR and in refining those individuals.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Graham, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we, for that 3-person committee, include Councillor Connors, Deputy Mayor Noble, and the mayor.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you. Of course, the mayor is a perfect option in that he's the one that works most often with the CAO, but may I ask what made you decide on the others?
In the absence of the mayor, the deputy mayor would be stepping into that role. And I know Mr. Connors has had experience in the business world and hiring people.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Halpin, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sloan. It had been my intention to suggest that Councillor Bachman would be a good fit because you are the de facto member and are a Port Stanley person. And I assume that whoever's on this committee will be trying to get a read on to what degree our potential CIOs understand Central Elgin and its concerns and so forth. And to have someone from Belmont and someone from Port Stanley would be a good way to cover that.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. Questions or comments? Councillor Watson, please.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I like the idea of our leadership, but mayor and deputy mayor as on this committee. And I know Councillor Connors in the private industry probably does a lot of job interviews and knows the questions to ask. I know I sure don't. So I would throw his name into the ring for that reason. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion?
There's a motion.
Pardon me, there is a motion. Seconder. Would you like to second the motion,
Yes,
please?
yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Watson, that council establish a CAO clerk recruitment selection committee to be composed of the following members of council: Councillor Connors, Deputy Mayor Noble, Mayor Sloan, and that Anushka Vandenbosch, Manager of Human Resources, Health and Safety, be directed to follow up with committee members and support the hiring process.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Closed session. If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Halpin, Councillor Connors.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Connors, that council proceed into closed session at 8:56 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. A mover and a seconder to exit closed session. Councillor Bachman, Deputy Mayor Noble.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that council adjourn from closed session and return to open session at 9:50 PM.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item CS2, 170 Main Street, Port Stanley. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bachman, Councillor Connors.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Councillor Connors, that closed session item CS2 regarding 170 Main Street, Port Stanley be received for information and that staff proceed as directed by council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CS 34980 Sunset Drive. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Halpin, Deputy Mayor Noble.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Halpin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that closed session item CS3 regarding 4980 Sunset Drive, Port Stanley be received for information and that staff proceed as directed by council.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. A mover and a seconder for bylaw 2784, please. Counselor Halpin, Counselor Connor.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Halpin, seconded by Counselor Connors, that bylaw 2784 be read a first and second time.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. A mover and a seconder for bylaw 2784 for a third time, or do I just need to vote? Connors and Watson, please.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Connors, seconded by Counselor Watson, that bylaw 2784 be read a third time and finally passed.
All those in favor? Thank you. And a motion for adjournment. If I could get a mover and a seconder, please. Counselor Bachman, Counselor Halpin.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Bogman, seconded by Counselor Halpin, that the regular meeting of council dated Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 be adjourned at 9:52 PM and that the next meeting of council 2023 budget deliberations be scheduled for Thursday, April 13th, 2023 at 7:00 PM.
All those in favor? Adjourned. Thank you.